Off the shelf, Battle of the Bracchi Hills on the Road to Rome 1944 in ATS or Advanced Tobruk System Expansion Module. Yeah. Yeah, so as far as Battle of the Bracchi Hills goes, I am just rearing to play this when the next opportunity I get. But I wanted to put out something first. This is a question that's been kicking around in the back of my mind for a good number of weeks now. This question came from, this question was, I guess came from a bunch of reading I was doing on Consim World forums under the game design section. Now this question, I don't remember this question coming up per se, but it was inspired by a bunch of game design discussions over there on Consim World. So the question is, can a game designer design a simulation game about something, about a subject matter that he or she knows nothing about firsthand? Now on the face of it, wow, these are really nice. Can't wait to play with these. I cannot wait to play with these. On the face of it, and I guess in principle as well, on the face of it and on principle, I don't think it's possible. So, but maybe this is a misleading conclusion. Maybe. So how would that work? If I was going to design a simulation game on surgery, major surgery, let's say heart surgery, I'm going to design a simulation game on heart surgery. So let's go through this. First of all, the question is, could I sit back in my leisure time and just think really hard about heart surgery, think about heart surgery, think about heart surgery, think really hard, and out of that, basically come up with an understanding of heart surgery enough to design a simulation game about heart surgery? So, I don't think so, but let's get some definitions down, or some basic ideas. First of all, a simulation game is always going to be a part or a subset of a full reality, of a phenomenon. So, first of all, I don't have to design a game that covers everything about heart surgery. I only have to design it enough like heart surgery to be a simulation game, which of course begs the question, what is a simulation game? Which is an important question, but first the question is, okay, then, how do you know you've designed a simulation game about heart surgery? Well, let's say that I design a simulation game on heart surgery, and the game is given to a bunch of, practicing heart surgeons. They play the simulation game, and first of all, they simply conclude on their own, yeah, this is a good simulation game about heart surgery. Now, granted, there are probably other valid ways to define what success in designing a simulation game is, but I'll just use that as an example. And by the way, an extension of what I just said there is, I think it's perfectly reasonable to conclude that if a group of heart surgeons all give a thumbs up, yeah, this is a good simulation game about heart surgery, it would be reasonable for those heart surgeons to conclude that the designer knows something about heart surgery. Now, is that a requirement? So how could I just sit back in my leisure time and gain an understanding of heart surgery, I guess out of thin air, to then design a successful, succeed in designing a simulation game from that understanding? Reminds me anyways of the monkeys in a basement, finally coming up with Shakespeare, right? Maybe that's not a good example, maybe it is, but it does come to mind. No, I don't think that it can be done that way. Now, there's another way. Let's say that I have a lot of first-hand experience. I'm a super experienced person in some activity that's similar. Well, let's say I'm another kind of surgeon. Whatever other kind of surgeon you can think of. I'm an oral surgeon. If I'm an oral surgeon, it would seem to be a lot less of a step, right? To say that I would then, even just sitting back, taking my, first of all, let's make it clear, sitting back with no knowledge and coming up with a successful simulation game of heart surgery, I'm ruling that out. That's not going to happen, realistically speaking. But if I sit back on my leisure time, but I'm an oral surgeon, could I come up with a heart surgery simulation game? That's a lot more believable. Because why? Because I'm extrapolating from knowledge, first-hand experience. Well, yeah, let's just say knowledge, first-hand experience. Knowledge, first-hand experience. I'm extrapolating from a known. Now, I could design a game, simulation game of heart surgery, based on my experience and knowledge of being an oral surgeon, hand that game off to a bunch of heart surgeons, and I could see it succeeding. The heart surgeon saying, yes, this is a successful simulation game of heart surgery, but I can also see it bombing. And the heart surgeon saying, no, this fails in these certain ways. And again, to go backwards, okay, it failed because, so what am I going to presume here? I'm sorry, not presume. What am I going to, what are my, they're not even assertions. What can I say about this? I could say if I failed in this heart surgery simulation game and I'm an oral surgeon, I could say, well, I still had a good chance of getting it right, but I didn't get it right. And the fact that I didn't get it right can still go back to the fact that I'm not actually actually a heart surgeon. Okay. So there's that, extrapolating from something that's similar. Now let's say I'm not a surgeon at all, but instead of sitting back and thinking that I'm going to come up with this understanding out of thin air, which I don't believe happens, let's say that I go to a good medical library and I'm able to find the right reference, academic, authoritative sources on heart surgery. I do believe it's realistic to say that I could go back again and again and again and spend long hours and long days and day after day and week after week, study from authoritative sources so that I get an understanding of heart surgery. Not that I would ever try it, obviously, but I gain an understanding of heart surgery, and from that design a heart surgery simulation game that, so to speak, could fool the experts. Not that I really mean fool, but, could be handed to experts, actual heart surgeons who say, yeah, that's a good simulation game of heart surgery, and we can't tell whether that person has experience or not. I believe that's possible. Now, once again, there's still a chance of failure, but there's a good chance of success. Good being relative to zero chance of success, sitting back on the front porch trying to figure this out. Okay, so now let's talk about two other examples. The first of these last two examples are, let's say I go to a general library and I search through the collections and I pull a bunch of different books that have to do with heart surgery, but they are memoirs. It is Dr. Smith, heart surgeon's life story, and it's a book about, something else related to heart surgery, but not on heart surgery. Heart surgery is just part of that book. I can read all that stuff, I can study all that stuff. The point being, to jump ahead, I don't get a good simulation game out of that. Why? Because the memoir of Dr. Smith, heart surgeon is not about heart surgery. It's about a person's life. And it doesn't matter how detailed the story of that person's life of going through medical school and whatever, establishing a practice, whatever. It doesn't matter how vivid it is, whatever. It's still a memoir. It's a person's life story, their perspective. It's not heart surgery. Basically, the fact that they're a heart surgeon is secondary to the fact that it's an individual's life story. And the same true with the other books. Heart surgery might be part of the story, but they're not about heart surgery, and they're certainly not accurate, authoritative medical reference sources. Okay, that's the first of the last two examples. And the last example is, again, go out, find every movie and television show and comic book or whatever, every piece of dramatic stuff about heart surgery. Again, try to make a game, won't work. Again, the primary purpose of the medical, some really popular medical television show set in a heart surgery heart surgery room with a bunch of heart surgeons. Again, it's not about heart surgery. It's about other things. It's other dramatic things. It's drama. You might learn about drama. You're not going to learn about heart surgery. So, by way of all of these different ways of looking at it, this is how I feel about war games. I think that trying to design a simulation game about combat, warfare, based on other games, not a very sure way to go. Just not great for learning about games. That's about all I'll say. Basing on war movies. The war movies are war movies. They're not, probably best is, of all the examples I gave, realistically the best is intensive study of the right sources. and or a combination of similar experience that can be extrapolated from. Notice I'm leaving out the possibility that somebody gets so much firsthand experience that that based on that alone they can design a sim. I'm ruling that category out. That's just not. That's actually not realistic either. It helps to have some firsthand experience. It helps to have some related firsthand experience. But realistically, and I would almost say the glue that would hold it all together would be the right kind of critical study of the right kinds of sources. Yeah. So this is just one take, one stab at that question. Really going back to how, another way to look at it is how important is some type of, and I might have started this with I might have used firsthand experience when I started with this. I can't remember what the terms I used. I didn't really mean that. I meant another way to ask the question is, how important is it that a designer have good understanding of the phenomenon in order to design a successful simulation game, bringing in the issue of having first-hand experience or having a lot of second-hand experience, whatever the case may be. Yeah, I just glanced down and, oops, I hit my camera stand. Yeah, I just glanced down and noticed how nice those counters are. Can't wait to play with these. Really enjoying the small counters now. And the small counters on the large hexes is so nice. So nice to put the counters in the hex and be able to see some terrain around the counter. Just really looking forward to playing this. I wish I hadn't hit my camera stand there. Off the shelf, Battle of Bracchi Hills. Kamerad. Bracchi Hills number 8. Half of the map. Is that the north half of the map? Night. We had a lot of scenarios at night, if I remember correctly. What's unusual here? Got some flares. Stuke 3. G there. Actually, that looks like a nice medium size for this module as a whole. That looks like a nice mid-sized scenario. 7 turns, moderate sized forces on both sides. Germans have just 1 armored fighting vehicle attached. Local armored support. Enter on turn 1. Okay. Yeah, that's a nice mid-sized scenario, but still at night though. All right, that's 8. All right. 9, Company G stopped at the spur. 6.5 scenario, 6.5 turns. That's about half of the map, just a corner of it, starting from a corner of it. No armored fighting vehicles, but we have those, or that flamethrower on the German side. Got that Pack 38. Americans have their heavy mortar. That's nice. Okay, this is average spotting conditions. And the Americans receive off-board artillery support from a battery of 105mm howitzers. Wasn't even paying attention to how many of these have off-board artillery. So that's Company G stopped at the spur. Dead in its tracks. Bracchi Hills number 10. Okay, Now the Americans get a couple of M10s, and the Germans have Pak 38 and AT mines. What did we say those were? Bunkers, I think. Yeah, nice. Spotting conditions average. That's nice. Another small area. Small area. That's. Well, I guess that's not. I guess those aren't so large forces. Just a lot of variable counter types of counters. Okay. Bracchi Hills, number 11. Confusion at the S Ridge. Another small map area. Small map area. Night spotting conditions. To simulate the especially dark conditions, all spotting ranges are halved. Ooh. Noting all fractions are rounded down to a minimum of 0. Same hex range. Wow. That is going to be interesting. No armored fighting vehicles. Yeah. Ooh. Close in bitter fight on a small patch of ground. And Bracchi Hills number 12, the capture of Santa Maria Infante. Again, the north half of the map. Oh, this has the M3, 3 M8s. Their heavy AT gun, American side, a little bit of everything, including flamethrower. Is that flamethrower? Sure looks like a flamethrower. What's the L? I don't know what the L is. Spotting conditions average, offboard artillery for the Americans. Those are 155 millimeter guns. The Germans have the SD 234-2, one of those. That's a little bit of everything as well. Should be an interesting fight to get a small to moderate amounts of everything. Surprised. Looking at these scenarios, I'm surprised this, well, speaking of not Battle of Bracchi Hills, but the original Santa Maria Infante, I'm surprised it's not more popular. Or maybe it is a very popular ATS module and I just don't, just haven't noticed that, figured it out yet. Okay. All right, some type of player aid card. We have I don't know if it's called a scatter diagram, but accuracy diagram. Okay, indirect fire effects table. Now, why are these different? Are these? I mean, some of these look familiar in the normal ATS rules. So maybe, does this replace the older version? Maybe, very possible. Glider casualties. Oh, this must be a glider crash landing. So these must be, maybe these are new versions, either new tables or new versions of old tables brought in with the TT changes. Grenade attack table. Maybe they changed the grenade attack routine. I don't really know. Obviously, I'll figure it out with more play of this, of the full rules and play of these newer modules. Bunch of gun penetration values. I'm used to seeing these broken up by nationalities, so that's going to be and I don't know the answer to the question. Maybe the series went to consolidated penetration value tables, no longer separated out by nationality. I will find out. I don't know. All right, and then finally the armored fighting vehicle cards. Color on the one hand, the older ones that I remember, just plain black and white, but these are also about 75% the size of the older ones. The older ones were larger. But these are not too small. Not for me anyways. Alright, so, and I notice this has Panzerkampf. It says ATS Bracchi Hills. AFE card 1 of 1, so I know I have the one that I'm supposed to have, but there aren't Panzerkampfwagen 4Hs in this module, so I don't know. But I do have what I need to have, though. Looking at the vehicles included. Oh. You know what I just realized? I did not go through and even double check that every vehicle counter shows up in shows up in one or more of the scenarios. But actually I think they do. Because there was an M3, there were M10s. I think there were M10s. I know there were M8s and M4s. The Germans were included in scenarios. I think the M10s were included. And so they're all on here. So bottom line is you get, all right, now I gotta look. You get the, I was looking for M10. There's the M8. Yeah, there it is, M10, yeah. Okay, so you get the, what's important is you get the AFE cards for the counters you get that are featured in the scenarios you get. There's just one extra German AFE card. I'm sorry, it might be two. There is a Stug 3G, and then there's a Stug 3GL. Trying to see what is the difference. All right, the armor is different. The armor factors are different. That looks like the major difference. Oh no, wait. This one, the 3GL has a BMG was at anti-aircraft machine gun, coax machine gun, BMG. Oh, I used to know what that was. Is it bow machine gun, maybe? Ugh. I wish I remembered. Well, anyways, it's got one. Whereas the normal Stug 3G has none of those. Actually, they're very similar. Very similar, but not identical. Yeah, very, very similar, actually. Okay, so those are the AFE cards. That is Battle of the Bracchi Hills on the Road to Rome 1944. Really looking forward to getting these out, especially just because I just really like the setting, Americans against Germans in the Italian theater. That goes back to lots of military history reading earlier in my life. Connected to the Italian theater. So there we are, off the shelf, Battle of the Bracchi Hills.